Good evening, everyone. My name is Edwin Maldonado. I'm the Community Engagement Manager for the All of Us Research Program at the Medical College of Wisconsin. Today's presentation is being sponsored by the All of Us Research Program. The future of health begins with you, advancing precision medicine and personalized medicine through research. Today's topic is understanding Alzheimer's and dementia. And we have a few housekeeping items I'd like to go over first really quick before we start. First of all, our presentation today will be in two parts. First part is the actual presentation in regards to dementia, Alzheimer's and dementia, excuse me. And then we'll have a Q&A session, a question and answer session. If at any time you have a question in regards to the topic, you should see a chat box or a question box where you can put your question in. And then at the end, we'll have a Q&A session where I'll be able to monitor that and be able to answer, or excuse me, to present the question to our presenter. If at any time you feel you want to talk immediately, just put your name in chat and say you want to talk, and then we'll keep an eye on it to make sure it works smooth. Again, this presentation is being recorded, and the recording will be made available on social media through YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Everybody has been muted by me. Again, if you need to be unmuted, please alert me, and that will take care of that really quick. We will be having a drawing for $25 at the end of the presentation, so if you're still here at the end, then you become eligible for the presentation. So today's speaker, let me introduce her, is Virginia Zerpa. She is she has a master's in public health. Virginia is a native of Venezuela and has lived in the United States since 1981. She attained her master's degree in public health in 1997 and has worked in diverse public health issues since then. Throughout her career, Virginia has been met many struggling and hardworking families that simply want to lead healthier lives, but don't have the necessary financial means or resources. In the summer of 2007, she joined the Milwaukee Latino Health Coalition Steering Committee to be part of a team of dedicated professionals determined to address the external forces affecting the health of Latinos. Virginia believes that health education without equity is like building sandcastles. Virginia has been since 2011, has been serving as the Latino-Focus Community Outreach Coordinator, for the Alzheimer's Association. Virginia, thank you so much for being with us today, and we're going to give the presentation to you.
Thank you. Okay, next. So this presentation is very basic. This presentation is tailored to the general public. We, however, we do have more in-depth training for family caregivers, where we educate them on how to speak with their loved one and how to understand and respond to dementia-related behaviors. So tonight's presentation is Alzheimer's and Dementia 101, very basic. But then I'm going to talk about the two terms, about the terms Alzheimer's and dementia and what the difference is. We'll talk about how Alzheimer's affects our brain, our human brain. We'll talk about the risk factors. And I'm going to just show you the slides of the 3 stages of the disease. This is a progressive disease from mild to advance, and everyone advances differently. Every person has its own unique progression of the disease. There is not the same progression for everyone. If you meet one person with Alzheimer's, you have met just one person with Alzheimer's disease. Everyone is different. And we're going to talk about the current medication approved by the FDA today, that is in the market today, to treat the symptoms of the disease. It does not treat the underlying cause of Alzheimer's disease, but just improve some of the symptoms of Alzheimer's disease, memory, it calms them down behavior, but the disease keeps progressing. And then we're going to talk about research. and how Alzheimer's Association supports researchers all over the world, and then the services that we provide to families. Today is, thank you, Edwin. Today there are 5.8 million Americans living with Alzheimer's disease. And if we do not find a cure, or even to slow down the onset of the disease in people, we project that by 2050, we will have 14 million people living with Alzheimer's disease. And there are 16 million people caring for these 5.8 million individuals living with Alzheimer's disease. 80% of people who have Alzheimer's or other dementias, they live at home, meaning that they live at home, they are our neighbors, and somebody is taking care of them 24/7. And now with the pandemic, with all of the adult day centers closed, so like all of my Latino family members who used to use the United Community Center, Adult Day Center, they cannot use it anymore since March. So they are at home 24/7. So these daughters and sons and daughters-in-law and grandchildren are taking care of their loved ones at home. And this disease has a devastating impact, not just on those with the disease, but also it becomes a extreme burden to caregivers. And caregiving usually falls heavily on family members, especially heavily on women, their daughters and daughters-in-law and granddaughters. And out of the 16 million informal caregivers, family caregivers, half of them have been providing care for 4 or more years. And nearly 1/4 of Alzheimer's and dementia caregivers are what we call sandwich generation, especially in the Latino families, but because these are sandwich generation caregivers are taking care of not only their mother or father or grandfather or grandmother, but also of their own children or grandchildren. So that's what we call sandwich generation, and it's 1/4 of them. And caring for people with Alzheimer's and other dementia is often a very intimate and very intrusive, because we sometimes, caregivers sometimes are on people living with the disease on top of them, so taking care of them in a very intimate way. So almost nearly 80% of people with the disease receive help with a daily personal care activity, such as bathing, dressing, grooming, eating. And that's in contrast to 20% of older adults who don't have dementia. Okay, so people with dementia, Alzheimer's and other types of dementia, they need this help. And 1 in 3 Alzheimer's caregivers provide help with bathing, showering, feeding, getting in and from the toilet, from the bathroom, and a much higher percentage than all their older adults. And about 1/3 of Alzheimer's and dementia caregivers have to deal with incontinence or diapers, versus 12% of 12% of caregivers that take care of older adults without dementia. So this is, as you see, this is a very demanding job. And if we paid these family caregivers $12 an hour, that would cost the United States government $234 billion. So these individuals, these family caregivers, are doing this job unpaid, okay? They do not receive a payment for this work. Next. And this is a very devastating disease because not only the amount of time they spend caring for their loved one, which is 24/7, but also we know that 1 in 6 caregivers have to quit their jobs. And right there, automatically, it affects their financial well-being because in order to take care of their loved one, they must quit their job. Somebody has to quit their job to do this caregiving, to take on this caregiving role. Now let's talk about Alzheimer's and dementia. And there are two very different terms. Dementia is saying cancer, and we know that there are many types of cancers. It's like saying flower, and there are many types of flowers. So dementia is just an umbrella term it's a group of symptoms. And this group of symptoms can be caused by many illnesses and conditions. And thank you. And there are conditions that we know that 10 to 15% of all dementia cases can be caused by something that can be treated and reversed, like acute depression, Lyme disease, medication side effects, brain tumor, problems with the thyroid, a deficiency in vitamin B12, acute deficiency of vitamin B12 can cause dementia symptoms in people 65 and older. But if you treat the deficiency of vitamin B12, the person will come back to normal. A person that doesn't hear well, then it may behave, it may show dementia symptoms, but it's because the person is not hearing well. And if you don't hear, you cannot get the information to use it later, right, in the future. So people may say, oh, my grandma may have Alzheimer's, where all grandma needs is a hearing aid. Or if glasses, if I don't see you, or if I don't see my surroundings, again, I'm not taking in the information to use it later in the future. And that may be confused with dementia symptoms. But if you get the right prescriptions for the grandma, grandfather, your mom and dad, then they'll be okay. Then now they can see. But there are the remainder of the cases of Alzheimer's are caused by a neurological disease that none of them have a cure, and they're all slowly progressive. They all have a slow progression, okay? And Alzheimer's disease is the most common type of disease that causes the dementia symptoms, okay? So not everybody with dementia symptoms have Alzheimer's, but everybody with Alzheimer's have dementia. So I hope that you can see the difference now. And then what you see on this screen is the other most common types of dementia. Vascular dementia is the second most common type of dementia. And usually we also know that there are many people, over 40% of them, that over 40% of people diagnosed with Alzheimer's have also vascular dementia. Okay, so they have two, or they could have Alzheimer's or dementia with Lewy body, Alzheimer's and frontotemporal. So there are many individuals that have two types of dementia happening at the same time. That is why when you meet one person diagnosed with Alzheimer's, you have met just one person, because sometimes we don't know who has that mixed dementia. It's very hard still to have a differential diagnosis with these individuals that have one that more dementia happening at the same time. Next. And then that's why the importance of accurate diagnosis. Doctors are becoming more and more proficient making a differential diagnosis. We're learning more and more about Alzheimer's and other dementias. For example, with Alzheimer's disease, we just learned that 30% of people diagnosed with Alzheimer's did not meet the clinical criteria of Alzheimer's disease, meaning that you not only have to present the symptoms of Alzheimer's, but you also have to have the biological pathology in your brain. Meaning, and I'm going to talk about this in the next slide, the accumulation of amyloid and tau, which are the two proteins present in the brain of Alzheimer's disease. So these two pathologies have to be present along with the symptoms in order to meet the clinical criteria of Alzheimer's. And we know that many people were diagnosed with Alzheimer's when they did not present with this pathology. So they may have had another type of dementia in their brain. But now more specialists and neurologists are learning more about how to diagnose with more accuracy. Okay, we're developing better tools with Alzheimer's disease. We are now in the process, in clinical trials of developing a diagnostic tool for Alzheimer's disease. So there are many clinical trials in doing blood tests or a spinal fluid test, or eye exam, like dilating the pupil and seeing through the eyes to diagnose with more accuracy whether it's Alzheimer's or a chronic traumatic encephalopathy or normal pressure hydrocephalus. So now we're developing diagnostic tools to help us be more accurate in diagnosing. And like I mentioned, with the there are many reversible causes of dementia. And this is a list. So for example, people 80 plus with an infection, like a urinary tract infection or a pulmonary infection, may present dementia symptoms because that infections is causing havoc in their brain. So they may be confused, disoriented, having a hard time understanding instructions, or having a hard time communicating. And all of these are signs of dementia. These are the dementia symptoms. And people who abuse alcohol when they're elderly can also show these dementia symptoms. Okay? So like I mentioned, dementia is a general term, and it's just a collection of symptoms that are severe enough to interfere with our daily life, with our making decisions. We make decisions all day long. We have our schedule of what's happening during the day. We need to prepare for what we have scheduled for the day, preparing meals, going to the doctors, going to work, making appointments. So if dementia symptoms will interfere with that, because these individuals will forget appointments, they will not take care of themselves, they forget brushing their teeth, they forget bathing or taking their medications or eating. And these dementia has to be serious enough to let us know that, okay, it's time to go see a specialist and see what's going on with my mom or dad or with my grandma or grandfather. Next. Oh, and just to let you know that even though Alzheimer's is most common in people who are 65 and older, that doesn't mean that it's a normal part of aging. It is not. It is a disease that happens more frequently in this age group only because it takes Alzheimer's 10 to 20 years to cause the devastation and the damage in the brain for the first symptoms to show. So Alzheimer's is destroying people's brains in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and then the symptoms will not show 10 or 20 years later, right? Because it's a slow, progressing disease. And it takes that long for the first symptoms to show. That's why it's more common in the elderly. And there is no cure today still, and it's the sixth leading cause of death. 1 in 3 seniors, 65 and older, will die because of Alzheimer's disease. And what Alzheimer's disease does is destroys our neurons or brain cells. Okay? And by destroying our brain cells, it's destroying our cognitive functions, right? Because depending on where the neurons are located in the brain, those neurons have a specific job functions in that brain. Okay? And this is what Dr. Alzheimer's and what all the doctors see in an Alzheimer's brain. A tremendous loss of neurons, a shrinkage, atrophy of the brain. The brain loses 1/2 to 1/3 of its original mass. There is tremendous atrophy in the brain. And then you can see plaques and tangles in the brain. So we see the amyloid plaques, and amylose is a protein that has a function within the brain. But something goes awry, and the filament breaks in two and it starts floating in the brain, sticking with other amyloid filaments, forming a plaque. And that plaque gets in between the neurons, and now they cannot communicate and talk to each other. And they cannot get the oxygen and the nutrients that they need to function, so they die. And then there is tau. another protein that also has a function within the brain. And once the brain reaches an abnormal level of amyloid cells in the brain, it reaches a tipping point where the tau starts malfunctioning, and then it kills the neurons from within. Next. So like I mentioned, it depends. The Alzheimer's disease starts way at the bottom of the brain, at the lower bottom center of the brain, what we call the hippocampus. And then from there, it moves across the brain, killing brain cells. And depending what brain cells it kills, those functions will disappear forever, and no other brain cells can move to that area and take over. Okay, no, once those brain cells are dead, they're dead. And the cognitive function will die with those brain cells. And this is brain photos, brain slices of, we don't know the ages of these two individuals, but we know that they are the same age, and we don't know the genders either. But we know that one person did not have Alzheimer's. You can see that slice of brain on the left is a very healthy brain. And the one on the right is a person who lived in an advanced stage of Alzheimer's disease. And you can see the atrophy, the shrinkage, and you can say that the brain is actually disappearing, it's dissolving. And that means that this individual has lost many cognitive functions and abilities. Okay. Risk factors. And we're going to talk about risk factors. So the greatest and the greatest risk factors that we know of is getting older. And that the older we get, the higher our chance of developing Alzheimer's disease. And 1 in 10 people, 65 and older, will have Alzheimer's disease. Once we celebrate our 85th birthday, 1 in 3 people will have Alzheimer's disease. Okay? And a family history can increase our risk. My father had Alzheimer's, so my siblings and I had a slight higher risk for developing Alzheimer's at our later years in life. But having 2 parents then increases your chances 2-fold, okay? So 1 parent increases our chances slightly, 2 parents increases our chances 2-fold, okay? But if our parents develop the disease at a later age, 65 and older, could you go back to the previous slide? Our chances are what we call, we're at a higher risk, but it doesn't guarantee that we will develop Alzheimer's. But people with the familial gene, meaning if you have the familial gene, you are guaranteed to develop Alzheimer's disease. And these people have had generations of family members developing Alzheimer's, and usually these family members develop Alzheimer's in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. So the familial Alzheimer's disease they develop it when they're younger, and it's more aggressive than the sporadic Alzheimer's type. And carrying the ApoE gene, which is, we have ApoE, there are 3 alleles, ApoE2, ApoE3, and ApoE4. And we know that ApoE4 put us at risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. We inherit a copy of one of these 3 ApoE from each of our parents. So we could get ApoE2 from my mom and ApoE4 from my dad, right? Or we could get 2 ApoE4 or 2 ApoE3 or a combination of the 3. And we know that having a copy of ApoE4 increases our chances of Alzheimer's disease. Having 2 copies, again, doubles our risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. But even having this ApoE gene doesn't mean that we will develop Alzheimer's disease, because there are many people with this gene who live without developing Alzheimer's disease. And people with Down syndrome have a high risk factor for developing Alzheimer's disease also when they're younger, in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Because of that chromosome 21, there is something on that extra chromosome that puts them at risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. 50 to 70% of Down syndrome individuals will develop Alzheimer's disease. And I have to rush, I'm sorry about that, it's almost time for me to finish, but also risk factors are, we know that women are nearly twice more likely than men to develop Alzheimer's disease. And we don't know exactly why, but many people, there are many hypotheses. First, women live longer than men. Second, women that were born in the early 20th century, in the 1900s, 1920s, so they women have less education, formal education, than men. So also lower attainment of education put people at risk for developing Alzheimer's at their later years. So perhaps because of women did not attain as much education as men, that's why they put women at a higher risk. Some hypotheses say because of our hormonal, like as we reach menopause, our estrogen levels decrease, putting us at a higher risk for developing Alzheimer's. But these are hypotheses. We know that African Americans are twice more likely to develop Alzheimer's than white, and Latinos are 1.5 more likely to develop Alzheimer's than white individuals. And Latinos also are more likely, on average, they develop Alzheimer's disease 7 years younger than other ethnic groups. And we think that these 2 populations are at a higher risk because, again, their lower attainment of formal education, and because of the higher incidence of diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, and obesity. And these are all health factors that put individuals at risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. But there are research, and there is no genetic difference between African Americans, Latino, and Caucasian. After controlling levels of education and socioeconomic factors, we found that there is no genetic difference between Caucasians, African Americans, and Latino, and the risk for developing Alzheimer's. So therefore, the importance of public health interventions, public elementary and high school education and college education is a public health issue, and as well as controlling all those health factors that I just mentioned. If we equalize all those factors, we will reduce the incidence of Alzheimer's disease in these two populations. And then you can see here, the disease starts from very mild symptoms to mild forgetfulness to very advanced, where now people are no longer able to talk, are no longer able to walk, are no longer able to hold their head up or swallow. Those are from early memory lapses to really taking over bodily functions like swallowing, breathing, speaking, eating. So from very mild to late stage. So it's a slow progressive disease. And it's not a linear progression. People can go in and out. For example, it's like a candle. The candle sometimes will lit brighter and then will go lower. People with Alzheimer's disease, one day they may perform perfectly, and their loved ones, see, they know what they're doing. They can get dressed. She knows what she's doing. Look at her. She did everything today perfectly. And then the following day, they cannot do what they did the day before, right? Because Alzheimer's disease is a disease that it involves chemicals in the brain, dopamine and choline. There are many neurotransmitters in the brain that it's an ebb and flow. And depending also if the person slept well the night before, or are they feeling okay? Are they sick? Did they eat okay? Are they constipated? All of that can influence the function, how the person functions day in and day out. So you can progress to next, 2 more slides, 3 more slides. And again, people with Alzheimer's disease, as the disease progresses, one of the things that frustrates them the most is that they're losing the capacity to communicate with others. And that causes frustration to anyone. That, sometimes I want to speak better, right? I have difficulties communicating well, and I get frustrated. The same with them. That is like the inability to say what they want to say, and that's why they get so angry, right? And also the ability to modulate their emotions is also impacted by this disease. So now they can no longer control their emotions. So what they give you is they're telling you, I have enough. I have enough with life. I am frustrated. I had it. So they're communicating with their anger and with their frustration. So now here is the FDA-Approved Treatments. And these 3 medications are from the same class, meaning that they all increase the level of this cholinesterase of choline, which is a neurotransmitter. It's a neurotransmitter that have a very important job in the brain for our memory, for our mood stabilizer, and for our communication. And Alzheimer's decreases the level of choline in the brain. So these 3 medications increases the level of choline in the brain to neutralize the loss of this important neurotransmitter in the brain. Next. And the second medication is there is only one, glutamate. And which is glutamate is the neurotransmitter. And what happens with Alzheimer's disease is that it increases the level of glutamate in the brain. And too much glutamate can be toxic to the neurons. It can kill brain cells. And what Namenda does, it lowers the level of glutamate in the brain. And many doctors prescribe Namenda and one of the other three together as a combination. And they see people who perform better after taking this medication. So 1/3 of people respond very well, but there are mild changes, mild improvements. And then 1/3 of people who take these medications see no difference, and the other 1/3, the side effects are so bad that they're better off not taking these medications. So, and then the FDA have not approved of any new treatment for Alzheimer's disease since 2004, has been the last approved medication. And the last one that was approved in recently, several years ago, I think 2011, Namsaric. And it's not really a new medication. What Namsaric is just one pill that has a combination of Arice and Namenda in one pill. So that instead of having to take two pills, people with Alzheimer's disease get to take one medication. Next. And the only way that we can find a cure or advance our knowledge of Alzheimer's disease and other dementia is through clinical studies. And that's why we are the largest non-profit funder of research in the world of Alzheimer's and other dementias. We are third after first is the government of China, second is the US government, and then as third in the amount of funding that we provide to scientists all over the world. And the Alzheimer's Association funding, we usually are more liberal in our funding, meaning that the US government and China government, they tend to fund scientists with a lot of experience and a big scientific portfolio. We, on the other hand, take chances on young scientists and on scientists in third world countries. We do take a chance on them because of their innovative idea and because of out-of-the-box thinking, that we provide them funding to do the research and to build on their portfolios. And a lot of our young scientists that we funded, then later on were funded by the National Institute of Health. Okay? So we create a pathways for science. We're also the largest convener of scientists from all over the world. We have an international conference every year, and this year it was virtual. And we have as you can imagine, the largest attendance ever, because of scientists that usually cannot afford to attend our conference. Now they were able to attend conference. These are virtual conference. So now what we decided from now on is to have a hybrid of in-person and virtual Alzheimer's Association Scientific International Conference. And we also have a trial match program where we try to recruit human beings to participate in clinical trials to advance the science of research, because money is one thing, right? We need a lot of money for clinical trials, but then we also need people to participate in these clinical trials. Without people, we cannot advance knowledge. So we have a trial match program where we work on recruiting potential clinical trial participants. And our trial match is like where we match the constituents with clinical trials that match their demographics to that clinical trial. So it's a matching service that we do for constituents. This is our services. We, when Alzheimer's disease touches your life, we have our 24/7 helpline that you can call us at any time. We're still open. We're open 24/7. We never close. Our calling center never closes. And then we also have a lot of information on our website, alc.org or alc.org/care, or for caregivers, and then alc.org/I have Alzheimer's, information for people in the early stage of Alzheimer's disease. And we also provide this CRF, which stands for Community Resource Finder, which helps caregivers where to find the resources that they need in the caregiving role, and how to better care for their loved one, in placing their loved one in a nursing home or assisted living, or finding in-home care professionals, or finding classes, educational classes, or finding support groups. All of that can be found in the Community Resource Fund. So we do also a lot of advocacy. And because of our advocacy, the funding has increased from, it used to be $400 million that the US government invested in Alzheimer's research back in 2011. And because of our advocacy, now the US government keep increasing the amount of dollars that they invest in research. Now we are up to $3 trillion that they're now investing every year in clinical trials. And this is funding from the US government to their own scientists, to the National Institute of Health, that they invest to their own National Institute of Health in pursuing a cure and better treatment. And we do our walks, like, you know, we have walks all over the place. And our walks are our largest fundraisers for our largest fundraiser. And now also we call it our largest support group, because when people who attend our walks, they're amazed of how many people are present that are going through their circumstances.
Thank you, Virginia, so much. I mean, wow, that's a lot of information. And I know that was only like 101, like you mentioned. I've learned a lot just by watching your video, and I have a lot of questions that I want to ask you, but because of time, I'm going to give the community a chance to ask, and I have a few questions for you. So if anybody has questions, please put it on the chat or the Q&A section. Feel free to do so. We will do our best to get as much of those in there today. If we can't, we will post those on our website when we post the actual recording along with the answers. So first question is a neurologist a specialist that treats Alzheimer's and dementia?
Neurologists What neurologists do, they only diagnose, and not many of them care for people with Alzheimer's disease. Once neurologists do the diagnosis, then it's the primary care physician who does the overseeing and medical care for people living with Alzheimer's disease. So with primary care physicians, it's important to find one that knows about the disease and knows about the medications and what is available out there, because not all PCPs are able or have the knowledge or the capacity to oversee and care for people living with Alzheimer's and other dementia. But usually neurologists, they don't oversee the patient on a long run. Their role is mainly to diagnose.
Okay. So if, let's say, for example, one of my parents has the symptoms, who would I go see?
Then you will go see your primary care physician.
Primary care physician. Okay, great. Another question is, are there, and I know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway, are there bilingual services in the helpline for Alzheimer's and dementia?
Yes. We have over 200 languages in our calling center. And I have my Latino bilingual colleagues at the calling center in Chicago. So yeah, we have over 200 languages in our calling center. And for example, let me go back to that question. Like, also, with symptoms and behaviors, you can also call us. You can also call our 24/7 helpline, or you can call me, because we can also let you know if we hear the behavior and what's going on. Because usually what happens with Alzheimer's disease, there are more strategies that are non-pharmacological that work better than pharmacological treatment. So it's also good to call us. Instead of the PCP, I think I would then urge you to call us first at the Association, because we will not tell you what may be going on with your loved one.
What would be your local number if someone is interested in calling?
414-431-8811.
Okay. 414-431-8811.
Yes.
And another question I have is, I know that you have a lot of material. Do you have it also in Spanish that's available for the community?
Yes. We also have on our website, we have a Spanish portal, and it's alz.org/español, and you will get into our Spanish portal.
Sounds great. Thank you. And what are some brain exercises that people can do to help to keep their mind sharp?
Well, actually, thank you for the question, but what we have learned through research, that the best thing one can do to keep our brains sharp and strong is physical exercise.
Oh.
Yes, physical exercise is amazing what it does to the brain. And then followed by nutrition, and followed by, engaging our brain in learning new things, challenging our brain with challenging information, and not reading the same type of books all the time, but reading about different topics, and chess, like strategic games like chess and bridge. Anything that is challenging to our brain is very beneficial. But exercise, physical exercise, is the way better than nutrition and mental activities.
Okay, great. Great, thank you. Well, I know we have a couple more questions, but our time is limited. I just want to say thank you so much, Virginia, for your presentation. And for anybody who's really still interested in more, again, their number is in the chat, 414-431-8811, or their website, alz.org. And if you want it in Spanish, /Espanol. And then you can get the information on their website. They have a lot of great information there that's going to be very helpful. Again, thank you so much, Virginia, for this. And also we did check our roster. We're going to do the prize drawing now. I'm only going to mention the initials of the winner, and then we'll confirm you via phone or email within the next 48 hours that you've won. And once we reach out to you, you'll have 2 weeks to respond to make arrangements on how to get the prize money. If you don't call us within 2 weeks of us notifying you, then it goes back into the pot for another prize for someone else. But thank you so much. And the initials I'm going to look at here are PDL. P for Paul, D for Diane, and L for Lucy. So the initials PDL, you are our winner today. A staff member will call you within the next 48 hours to just verify everything information to make arrangements to have you how to deliver the money to you. We thank you so much. And again, upcoming, we're going to have Virginia back again on December the 9th, but she'll be doing the same presentation in Spanish. So if you want to come back again or invite other people to hear the same presentation in Spanish, please, that'll be December the 9th, Wednesday at the same time. Virginia, thank you so much again for your presentation. I wish I had more time because it's such an interesting topic. And again, like you told us, this is just 101. So we have more to discuss. Again, everybody, please go to their website. There's a lot of information there that'll help you. Again, on January 13th, I'll tell you this ahead of time also, we're going to have a presentation on cervical cancer. Okay. After this event, please take a few minutes to just complete a short survey that's on there, or you can email us at allofus@mcw.edu with any suggestions. On the screen now, you will see our contact information, our address. Our phone number is 414-955-2689. If you have any questions about this or any of our presentations, they will all they are all online. Any questions, give us a call or email us at allofus@mcw.edu. And we're also at allofusmke online, or joinallofus.org/Wisconsin. Thank you again so much, everybody, for attending. Virginia, again, thank you so much for your presentation. And have a great holidays, everybody. Have a great Thanksgiving. May you eat much and gain little. Take care. Thank you so much. Goodbye.